As I mentioned, the European Network of Migrant Women is a migrant women-led feminist, secular and non-partisan platform that advocates for rights, freedom and dignity of migrant, refugee and ethnic minority women, girls in Europe. Their diverse membership includes women from almost all regions of the globe, extend to over 50 grassroots and advocacy groups of 20 European countries. Their projects vary from combating stigmatism of migrant refugees with a specific focus on women and girls to digital empowerment of migrant women, counseling for women migrant against gender-based violence. So they are a wide-based organization. The communication officer, Adriana, I'm very grateful for her to give us our time to present her case. As she mentioned just now to us, she is of a Portuguese-Brazilian feminist. She graduated in international relation. She is also the co-convenor of Young Women's Movement. Adriana, without further ado, the floor is yours. And may I ask whoever is not muted to be muted, please.
Thank you, Aisha, and thank you so much, all of you women, for having me here with you today. So okay, I thought I heard something. Okay, so my name is Adriana, I'm 29. I'm the communications officer of the European Network of Migrant Women. And I accepted Aisha's invitation to come here today because even though I have this specific title, you know, we are a very small team and we are very much interdynamic. So I have this title, but we each do everything in the network. So I take care of communications, of course, but I also take part in all the projects that we do. And as Aisha was saying, I'm the co-convenor of the Young Women's Movement of the European Network of Migrant Women, which is called Radical Girls, but I will explain a bit this further. So as Aisha said as well, we are a platform, we are a network. First of all, we are members of the European Women's Lobby. And that's where we kind of originated, you know, because the lobby wanted to have a more, you know, concrete projects on migrant women. And the women that belonged to the lobby at the time, so in 2012, some of them gathered together and decided to do a migrant women-led network because you know, the sisters were tired of the institutions just tokenizing us, first of all, and then of being just invited to the table when there were topics on migration. But we are very much experts on other topics, so that's why we created our own platform. So ever since, we've been really solidifying the network. This year, the network turns 10 years old. And we're really, really proud of it because it's really the product of collective work between older and younger women. It's really an intergenerational platform. It's a multi-ethnic platform. And it's really one of the only feminist platforms that deals with migration. And the reason why this is very important for us is because most of migration organizations, they are not really feminists. So they don't really have that, you know, the women's rights-based approach. And on the other hand, when you go sometimes to feminist organizations, they are, you know, their Achilles heel is migration. So by putting that together, we believe that we are a very unique platform. So right now we are 4 members of team. 3 are based here in Belgium and the coordinator is based in Scotland. But we managed to make it work, even though we have a lot of work. And that's why, Aisha, sometimes I took a lot of time to respond to your emails, but it's just, you know, it's a lot of work. Right now, we're supporting the women that we evacuated from Afghanistan back in August 2021. We managed to evacuate a big group of women to different European countries. So we've been kind of dealing with that. We just had workshops in Spain. We went to the Spanish Parliament and held an event there with the Afghan women that we evacuated. And now we're also in the process of supporting the newly arrived Ukrainian women, but also the women that are most at risk over there. Because one of the specific things about our platform, and this is something that all European Women Lobby members share, is that we are abolitionists. So this means that we are against any kind of sexual exploitation of women. This includes prostitution, but also pornography, also includes surrogacy and many other things. So yes, this is what kind of sets us apart. Today, Aisha asked me to talk. We convened together that I will be talking about the political participation of migrant women, but specifically the political participation of young migrant women, based on a project that we led last year and that really culminated in a report and a toolkit called the Political Participation of Migrant Women. And this is an important project for us because it was led by our young women's group, the Radical Girls. The young women's group, of which I am a member too, is basically the youth branch of the European Network of Migrant Women. It's the young women members that belong to the various organizations of the European Network of Migrant Women. We came together to set up this group, and we do consciousness raising and awareness raising with young migrant women or migrant women under the age of 30. And we also do, capacity building workshops. We also do public representation in the European institutions. And this project, the political participation of young migrant women, is the combination of desk research that we did first and foremost, and then participatory workshops, and a report. So I will be just talking about this project today. Unfortunately, I was sick last week and I blocked my back the last 3 days, so I don't really have a presentation for you, but I am more than ready to answer your questions at the end. And I can also send you a presentation that I can make afterwards. So it's really no problem if there's something that is missing. I volunteer totally for that. It's absolutely not a problem. I really apologize that I don't have any visual material for you women today, but it was a bit impossible. And I will also put the link here to the report and to the toolkit that we created. So first of all, last year we were deep in COVID during the COVID crisis. We saw that the COVID crisis not only endangered the lives, of the regular population, let's say, but it really worsened the conditions of the lives of many migrants and refugees, and it had a really particular harmful impact on women and girls. So in the longer term, both the economic and the social consequences of this crisis, we knew that they would imperil migrant and refugee women, and consequently the access to their rights, their dignity, their integration, and the social cohesion, if serious actions were not taken. So based on this, and based also on the knowledge that migrant and refugee women historically and socially, they have been very much distanced from international frameworks and frameworks that are important for women and women's rights. Here I'm talking about, for example, the CEDAW Convention, which is our most important legal tool for women and women's rights, but also the Commission of Women, the Beijing Platform for Actions, etc. We saw that the migrant and refugee women, historically, they're distanced from these processes. So it's very much hard for us as migrant women to really know our rights if we don't have access to the texts that set these rights, right? Also, as a result, we see that since we don't participate in these kind of fora and in these kind of frameworks and processes, the result is that our interests are really not represented, poorly or at all represented. There's lack of interest as well. So we didn't have a lot of migrant women interested in the defense of their rights, even though this is like a main tenet for us. We know that it's not the case of most migrant and refugee women, because their lives are mostly based on survival, and sometimes there is no time for this. So for young migrant women, the gap regarding these instruments is even bigger, because we face specific challenges, and most of us, we didn't really grow with the knowledge of these frameworks, because these frameworks, they were created in the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s. And the women of this generation, we're not really in tune with that. So we thought it was really crucial to bridge this gap and to before we lose, the values, the principles, and the legal obligations that are really entrenched in these documents. Apart from that, we know that migrant women have a lot of things to say. Most of our discourses, they're very much co-opted in the name of inclusion, but when it comes to really putting in place mechanisms that really include us and make sure that we have a seat at the table, that's always more difficult because there's a lot of tokenism on migrants and especially young migrant women. So yeah, we had all this in mind and we wanted to do something about it. So first of all, we started with these questions, what hinders our participation in international decision processes? What changes are required to address the causes of this disconnection from the international decision-making bodies? And how do we migrant women view these gaps? So to answer these questions, we entered into a partnership with this university called Sciences Po in France, but mostly their gender equality department, because they have a really good program of both masters and bachelors. And we selected for their students to do some desk research to answer these questions. Why are we not included in these processes? Why do these gaps exist, and how can we bridge them? So this report that I will tell you about is mostly first and foremost based on desk research. We consulted a lot of sources. We did an extensive research to answer these questions. After that, we launched a call to workshops. So it was first of all an online workshop to the young women who responded to this call. We made a call on social media asking if women were interested in participating in a pilot project that dealt with these questions. We had a lot of answers, and based on the answers that we received, we managed to get 4 women that traveled to Brussels. 2 of them were already based in Brussels, but one of them traveled from the Netherlands to have, this pilot workshop. First we had the online workshop in which we had almost 30 women. It was a chance for the women to meet each other, first of all, to talk about their own experiences of exclusion in their host societies, of exclusion of their parents, because some of them are second-generation migrants, such as myself. We had spoken word poetry, which is a very powerful tool for young women. First of all, they need to do a collective effort to come up with poetry, but it's a kind of poetry for people who are not very much in tune with this kind of form of expression. So we did a spoken poem that I can share after all with you. And then we held 2 weekends of online workshops and of physical workshops. And these physical workshops, they were very much based in, the capacity building of young migrant women. Because these gaps that I was mentioning before exist, this means that also migrant women and young migrant women don't really believe in their own skills and in their own capacity to participate in political spheres. And when we say political spheres, we don't really mean just the United Nations or, the General Assemblies and things like that. It's, it can be little informal groups in which women are made to put forward their opinion. It can be in a school board or a board of an organization. But basically, we just wanted the women to feel like they could develop skills. They don't have to develop the skills that are usually put upon migrant women, because if we go around and look at the mainstream discourse, migrant women are always mentioned when it comes to, the care economy, but also cleaning services, taking care of other people. So we wanted to make sure that, the next generation of young migrant women have organizational skills, public speaking skills, presentation skills, skills that enable them to work in collectives and with informal groups. And that's because, young migrant women, we've been socialized to not believe in ourselves, first of all, because society tells us that we are not enough. So we actually lose a lot of opportunities of, self-enhancement and self-knowledge in that. So yeah, we had those workshops, and based on those workshops and those desk researches, we managed to come up with a report on the whole process, but mostly we managed to come up with a toolkit, and this toolkit is very important because it's a toolkit that is aimed at NGOs and aimed at NGOs that work with migrant women and that work with young migrant women, so they can reproduce the content that we created, and that this knowledge can be shared and not only used by us, but used for the greater benefit of young and just migrant women. In this toolkit, you will see, I mean, we do have an analysis on male violence because we think that the political participation of migrant women is very much determined by the level of male violence and how it has affected them in a bigger or lesser scale, depending on the region they come from and the problems that they face in their regions, but also in the host societies. So we state clearly that migrant women are a group at risk, but this doesn't mean that we cannot learn and take part in many political, both formal and informal, for the advancement on our rights. So yeah, we were also confronted with some limitation. Of course, this was done during the COVID-19 pandemic. So a lot of activities, they switched from physical to online format. This was a bridge that this was a gap that we had to bridge. We also take into account that the call for participants that we issued attracted women that already have a certain access, to information. They have access to language. They also have, a little bit of interest in politics. Therefore, obviously, we cannot guarantee that all the voices of the most exposed and unprotected migrant women were consulted for this report, but we did make a conscious effort to do that. And it's an effort that we keep in mind in every activity that it undertakes. So yeah, just for you to understand more or less what we found, our findings on why there are so many gaps in access to political institutions by migrant women. The first thing that we found is that the stereotyping and external perceptions that society have of migrant women is really an obstacle for us to participate in political spheres, because they really require discussions and sensitization and confronting diversity, and also not all women are discriminated on the same basis. I mean, we know that all women are discriminated on the basis of sex, but we also have to take into account race, or ethnicity at least, and class. So we can really understand, the intersecting violence that exists upon these women, and how we can, overcome that. So for us to bridge this gap on stereotyping and external perceptions, we based ourselves on CEDAW, so the Convention for the Elimination of all Forms of Discrimination Against Women, and specifically on Article 5 of CEDAW, which calls for the suppression or the elimination of sex stereotypes. And this is very much important for us because based on our sex, there's so many doors that are closed to us. And it's important that we take account of this reality, but it's also important for us to move forward from it and not stay where they want to. So because we are a multi-ethnic network, we also had multi-ethnic participants, and we realized that for Arab women, the sex stereotypes that are imposed upon them is that they are submissive women, that they are women who acquiesce a lot. In the case of Black women, we had a lot of feedback that these women felt, that they were not even human, and this is what society actually shows Black women. So, the overcoming and the realization of these stereotypes was very powerful. At the same time, painful, because it's not easy to really understand how society perceives us and how our own action is determined by this perception. But it's very important for us to be aware that we can challenge these stereotypes and that we can bring knowledge to the table. The second conclusion that we confronted ourselves with is that male violence and, violence at society level really has a psychosocial impact on women, and particularly young women. When we think, of migration journeys, but also of experience in the host countries, we're very much confronted, with women who are suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, social anxiety, dissociative reactions, coping strategies that are maybe not the best. So this really causes young women to not participate in public life because, first of all, their mind does not allow them to do, but sometimes this participation reinforces their self-limiting beliefs, So we really had these two aspects, the challenging of sex stereotypes, but also the notion of psychosocial impact and how it can harm a woman's expression and participation. The third thing we discovered, we already knew, but we concluded that there's really a lack of representation in the public sphere. And this calls of their capacities and their place in societies. This can be due, first of all, because of their own perception, but also the perception that the community places on migrant women. In the European Network of Migrant Women, we're very critical with the notion of community. Because even though it can be something that is very, very positive for migrant women to feel attached to certain, customs and beliefs, most of our members, they have a critical view towards that because they don't feel like they can really be themselves in their community. And by this, it means that sometimes the community, the migrant community of a particular ethnicity or nationality really comes to reinforce, this cycle of silence around male violence, and really comes to reinforce, the silencing of women in the sense that you don't go against your community. We don't talk about things that are done. This is how it's been done for a lot of years. And I think that's really a shame because in Europe, and particularly Western Europe, politicians, they already have that racist bias, for example, towards female genital mutilation. They would not even say that it's something harmful for women and girls because they say it's their culture. But we totally disagree on that. And we think that even though there are certain things that are embedded in people's culture, it doesn't mean that it's okay. It doesn't mean that women and girls are not suffering, and it doesn't mean that we must not, act around it. I say female genital mutilation, but I can also talk about forced marriage or prostitution or things like that. It's just that based on our own personal experience and the experience we have as a network, sometimes the community does not allow for women and girls to flourish and keeps them where they are silenced. So this is something that we confronted as well, because community plays a huge role in the self-development and the self-perception that women have. The fourth conclusion that we realized is that there's really structural and systemic factors that will hinder young migrant women's agency and independence. So, for example, migration can be beneficial to migrant women that escape violence and persecution. It can give them a higher degree of economic and personal independence, as well as safe spaces. But in the same manner, women can also be seen as valuable agents that can contribute to improve the human development in countries of origin, but also in countries of transit and destination. But the positive results of migration, they're very, very much conditioned by the migration policies and asylum policies and integration policies that we have in each European state. And of course, those policies, even though we see the trend here in Europe that they are very much restrictive, they vary from country to country. So depending on the country, we have different vulnerabilities that are highlighted, and sometimes it's it's difficult to deal with that because not every migrant woman's experience is the same. Another thing that was brought to our attention we already knew this, but this is really much reported in the report, is that migrant women face a lot of institutional violence. And sometimes it doesn't really, it's difficult to get these women to participate even at local political level, because there is a conscious effort from the state to bar these women from accessing any kind of political space where they would have, a voice that differs from the mainstream. So of course, in principle, migrant women have rights. We have conventions, we have legal texts, but in theory, that is not always the case, and that's the reality that we have to deal with. And another thing that we came upon with is that there are really insufficient resources and livelihood opportunities, not only at personal level, but also at institutional level. We saw with the COVID pandemic that women's organizations, they were extremely underfunded. A lot of our own members had to close down for a certain period of time because they didn't receive enough funding. So of course, migrant women organizations, we are severely underfunded, and when we are funded, it's just in the framework of a project that we apply to or something like that. So we don't really have this margin of action sometimes all the time. I could talk a lot about this report, but I think I've already talked quite a lot, and I don't want to bore you women to death. What I can do is, because this report and toolkits are very, very complete, and they do require some degree of attention to carefully read through them and things like that. So what I'm going to do is post here on the Zoom chat, both the report and the toolkit. I wanted to tell you that the toolkit, even though it's open for all NGOs or informal groups to work with migrant women, we also, as Radical Girls, we are proposing to groups that are interested to come and deliver in training on how to use this toolkit. So maybe that is of interest to you women. If sometimes you want to invite us, you can write me and I can take care of that. Just know that it's a participative tool. It's a tool that requires the building of capacities of migrant women, but it's also a tool that raises awareness on the barriers that we face. The barriers being what I told you before, lack of funding, male violence, institutional violence, limitation on self-perception limitations, and problems arising from the community, but not only. So yeah, as I said, we're prepared to travel to give trainings to NGOs, but informal or formal groups that would be interested in this toolkit. We believe it's a very, very useful tool, a very good tool. It's a feminist tool, so it's very much based on women, their needs. It's tailored to their needs. That's why we did the desk research, but also the interviews with the migrant women, the pilot workshops. So this analysis that we made, it's built from the ground up. But it mixes both grassroots action and academic research. So I think it's very important for us women to have to take into account that as much as we have theory, but we don't allow or we don't enable women to develop their skills and to use the theory and to really use it at grassroots level, then it doesn't really mean much. At the same time, this theory is very important for us because we base our action on it, but it's very important, to always have that I don't know really how to frame it in English, but, always keep an eye on the ground while building your analysis. And yeah, analysis and theory should always come from the lived realities of migrant women and not the opposite. So yeah, I remain available for any question or any clarification that you might need. And in the meantime, I'm just going to put here the things on the chat. Thank you.
Adriana, thank you so much. And may I applaud you on this presentation skill without the slides, because you have engaged us all that time. And you did not need the slides. You took us in that journey of starting that project and how it is the finished sort of product as well with it. And I'm sure among us all, from the diverse background that we have here, some of us might take you on offer for that training. I might start the questions myself and leave it to the floor as well. For your network, would you be to just know, where do you normally get your funds, and how did you get the collaboration with the French university for that specific project?
So what we have core funding.
Mm-hmm.
This core funding is clearly not enough, but first of all, we have, the membership fees that our members pay to us, keeping in mind that most of them are small migrant women organizations. So we ask a symbolic fee. It's not that we are asking a lot. During COVID, some of the members could not even pay their fees. So we set up an emergency fund for those who couldn't pay. Most of our funding, or the projects that we are able to get, are done either via applications to European Commission's projects, in which we try to really put our members forward, but also our analysis. So we are experts in violence against women, integration, social rights, and migration, the intersection of all those. So we try to put that forward in the projects. So right now we're participating in 7 different projects. This particular one that we did was via this foundation called Women for the International. They're a US-based foundation, and they, well, very honestly, they have quite a big cachet. They have a lot of funding, and what they're looking for is to finance, projects for women by women. They did a lot of, they are kind of philanthropic organization.
Yeah.
So it was them who put the funding together, and from there we could build this. So yeah, it really depends. Sometimes we apply to, funding from foundations. We have funding from EPIM right now to help the Afghan women. So yeah, it's a bit varied. On our own, right now, I can say that we could not really survive if we didn't have these projects. But it's good because they make us be in contact with a lot of organizations around Europe, and we are able, to put our membership forward.
Indeed. Thank you very much. I'll wait to see if there's any questions for Adriana from the floor. Roxana, if you see anybody's hand up that want to have questions.
Annelies.
Annelies.
Adriana, how many staff members do you have to do these projects?
We are 4 right now.
4? Wow.
Yes. Yeah. So
what you do with so few people?
Yes, we were trying to enhance the team. But yeah, right now we are 4. And that's why I was saying at the beginning, even though I'm communications officer, each of us takes care of almost everything, because it's really a lot of work that is done in the shadows.
Hello, am I allowed to talk? I haven't opened up my camera because my camera is not working, but I put a long note to Adriana on my chat box, if Adriana could read it. I represent the Hague Office Committee, which funds migrant women and women from conflict zones, displaced women, for skill education, as you have so rightly pointed out, is so essential for them to tap their potential to be able to work in the country where they have sought asylum. But I would consider that the Hague Office Committee, the last 3 years, has not been able to give a single money for a single dollar, literally, to any application, because the eligibility crisis for a refugee woman is bogged down by certificates from the UNHCR and from the country that handles migration in their bureaucratic offices. So they are unable to produce these certificates, although they are rightfully migrant and refugee women, and they're all wanting some funding to be able to have some income generating activity in their new country, to be able to get a small work. And as you said, not to put them into boxes of stereotype of domestic help and cleaning ladies or childcare, but to put them into a world which gives them some self-esteem. Is there any kind of thoughts on giving these women some advanced computer technology and things like that? Is that possible in refugee camps?
I mean, the problem with doing that with refugee camps is that most energy sources are collective. So you'll have specific spots where women can charge their phones and their computers. But what we observe in refugee camps is that since they are not, you know, disaggregated, I don't mean disaggregated, but they're not divided or separated by sex. What we see is that we see a lot of men, but in the common areas, we don't see women because they are at risk, first of all, but there's a big risk of, you know, sexual violence. And actually there's a lot of risk for women in these refugee camps. But we do try to do that. Right now, we are kind of in contact with these organizations that provides, you know, refurbished computers, especially the women that we evacuated from Afghanistan. They really want to continue their educations. There's a lot of women who were supposed to go to university, but with the uprising of the Taliban, they had to leave that. So right now they are in Spain and other countries with no project for the future. A lot of these women had undertaken studies. Now they can do them because they only have a phone, and sometimes that phone is, you know, shared with other members of the family. So there is a definite need for digital tools, a need to use these digital tools as well, although young migrant women are more in tune with that. But for their mothers, for example, if they hope to find a job right now in Europe, right now everything is digital. And back in their countries, they didn't really have to rely that much in these digital tools, depending on the sector that they were moving themselves in and if they were living in rural areas or not. But yeah, there's a definite need for digital tools, and we don't have enough of that, and we don't really have a stable partner to help us with that. So yeah, I don't know if this answers your question. If not, I'm sorry, but I don't mind. I don't mind if you. Yeah, if you.
Have you ever thought of tapping Google for that? Or yeah, Google would, I think they have some kind of a philanthropic arm, some kind of funds set up in this area for charity or whatever. If one could tap their resources, maybe you will find some help coming by way of large contributions of computers and iPhones for the refugee women.
Okay, I will take note of that.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Annelise.
I have a small comment on a project that was done. We have a net power project in Europe with 5 organizations, and one of them are the Finnish university women, and they have done a research on what women do when they settle in the country, and women with good education, what kind of jobs they would get and what help they need to get their real qualifications recognized, and also help with getting their education valued at the right value. And it wasn't a very positive answer, actually, because most of the women got jobs far below their actual capacities. I have tried to get some information from the University Asylum Fund here in the Netherlands, and I couldn't get, at the moment, I couldn't get any information about how many women and how many men they were helping in, because we had a feeling that if there is a family coming on and they both have high education and there's just one grant, then who will get the grant, huh? You can imagine. So I would like to have some more information on that, and when I have it, I will share it.
That's great, because it's a real problem in Europe. I only know the Belgian context, but here in Belgium, it's extremely difficult for women who come with higher background education to get their diplomas recognized here. So we have, you know, doctors, nurses, engineers, really doing, you know, very much so-called informal work, because it's just called informal because it's women who are doing them. But still, we have a lot of, you know, highly educated women that are definitely not tapping into that potential, and maybe we'll never even see again, you know, a doctor's desk, and that's indeed very sad. So I'm interested in what you find if they ever give you an answer.
Yeah, at the moment they are having specific programs for teachers in mathematics because there's a real shortage. And so they look into the possibilities of teaching them and getting their diplomas recognized with that sort of thing. And then so they could get jobs as a teacher. But then you need to have a good grasp of the Dutch language, which is one of the stumbling blocks actually. Because working in universities or higher research institutions and so on, mainly English, which is used. So that's quite a help for quite a lot of people. But for teaching, or like doctors, for example, they can't work without the Dutch language. So, but there are programs, but I have no idea how effective they are and how many people are taking care, because quite often it's a pilot program to see what helps and what not. And then it's very difficult to get a more continuous basis.
That will lead us very nicely to the second speaker, Annelies. You've almost made my presentation work very well. Unless there is any other question.
I see Crystal had her hand up.
Yes, of course.
I was just going to add to what Annelies was saying, that I know that the Medical Council in Britain and the General Medical Council and the Dental Council in Britain have programs for migrant women, well, for migrants, men and women. And through HIG-HOFIT, we have funded dentists so that they can practice and work in England, that their skills are upgraded. Well, skills and language. I think the courses involve both. So that, and language obviously is a factor in a number of migrant women's involvement in getting their careers back on track. Thank you.
Thank you, Crystal. Thank you very much, Adriana. And if you are able to stay with us on the meeting, there might be further question or discussion. I would be very grateful. But on behalf of UE Board, I thank you for your time and your participation. May I introduce our second speaker, Dr. Basak, is the Vice President of the Graduate Women International. And again, I will say a very brief presentation because I've got the many eminent members of the Graduate Women International here with us, but for the members that might not be aware of the organization. It's a organization that advocates for women's rights, equality, empowerment through access to high quality secondary and tertiary education and training up to the highest level. Their vision is 100% of girls and women in the world achieving education beyond primary school. And I think we all believe, personally myself, believe in that ethos. The Graduate Women International have 60 countries and individual more than 40 countries. Dr. Basak is a vice president of the Graduate Women International. She's a member of the Turkish Association for University Women. Basak graduated from the Department of International Relations in Belcanto University and obtained her master from the London School of Economics in European Studies. And she concluded that with a PhD thesis under the title Women NGO's Role in Decision Making. And currently she is lecturing at the Bebişkir University. Thank you very much, Basak, for giving us that talk that will blend very nicely to the question and to the HIG-HOFIT Fund.
Thank you for your introduction, Aisha. I'm very pleased to be here with you tonight. Greetings from Istanbul. Thank you very much for inviting me. I will share my presentation. I will briefly introduce GWI, and I will explore on our refugee fund called HECOFED. Can you see my slides? Okay.
Yes.
As Aisha told, I am from Turkish Association of University Women. This is my 25th year in my association, and I am experienced in gender and sustainable development. As we all know, women and girls are disproportionately affected from wars and conflicts. And Turkey is one of the host countries. We have more than 4 million Syrian, 1.5 million Afghan refugees in my country. And recently, we are welcoming Ukrainian refugees right now. I believe their voices must be heard. That is why I would like to give you a brief introduction to our HECOFED fund, which lasts 100 years. Our organization is a non-governmental organization of 100 years old. We believe we advocate for women's rights, and of course our mission is education. We can achieve everything through education. We believe this. And I will take you to history because our organization established after the catastrophe of the World War I. 3 graduate women from UK, Canada, and USA came together in 1918, and they conceived the idea of a worldwide organization uniting university women, and they were convinced that by fostering friendship and understanding, women graduates could help prevent another catastrophe. But unfortunately, we are facing conflicts, wars in this 21st century. But their dream became reality the next year, and they founded International Federation of University Women. And thousands of women graduates throughout the world share the same principles and vision that inspired those early leaders. As I have said before, we advocate for education beyond primary school. We advocate for women's human rights, and we advocate for peace and friendship. We have national associations and federations all around the world. We have 54 member countries and also some independent members.
Basak, should we be seeing your slides? Sorry to interrupt. Should we be seeing your slides? Because we're only seeing the first one. It hasn't gone on from there.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Can you see it right now?
And can you put them to full screen instead of having just a small one?
Yeah, I did full screen before and you couldn't see it. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Here is our membership map in 54 countries. And our vision is for 100% of girls and women in the world to achieve quality education beyond primary school, to reach their highest potentials. We want them to take positions in decision-making process. And the advocacy work and micro projects held throughout the world remove the sociocultural, gender-related, and economic barriers girls face towards education endeavors. We have projects in all our NFAs, empowering women and girls worldwide through education and leadership development. Approximately 6,000 women and girls globally have been positively impacted by GWI's various projects since 2015, and 30 projects have been successfully implemented since 2015 in 14 countries. You can find further information in our website about our projects. GWI focused on SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, because one of the goals, goal number 4, quality education, is our mission. So, ensuring inclusive and equitable quality education and promoting lifelong learning opportunities for all is our goal. And we know that the Sustainable Development Goals are cross-cutting each other. So SDGs including poverty, also cross-cutting with education, gender equality, health and well-being, inequalities among countries, decent work for all, and promote peaceful, inclusive societies. GWI is in special consultative status with the United Nations ECOSOC since 1947, and non-governmental organization maintaining official relations with the UNESCO and ILO. We have representatives at the United Nations in New York, Vienna, Paris, and Geneva. One of our representatives, Elspeth Francis, is here with us today. And coming to our refugee fund, HECOFED. This program assists graduate women who have been displaced as a result of war, political upheaval, or other serious emergencies. For instance, earthquake as well. We give short-term grants for female students who have suffered hardship due to disaster and who wish to continue their work or studies. These women, some are fleeing gender-related atrocities in their home countries, such as rape, honor crimes, forced marriage, and female mutilation. Others fear for their lives because of persecution for reasons of race, religion, nationality, or membership in a particular social group. Refugees arriving in a new country most face complex challenges to integration. Among them, language difficulties, unemployment, rejection of foreign qualifications, and the need for retraining. So our HECOFED fund provides short-term grants for refresher courses for re-entry into the candidate's professional field, training courses, language trainings, and other courses to assist with integration into their new country. In addition to financial assistance, GWI's national and local groups also provide the graduate refugees with moral support to help them to adjust to life in a different country. And they become our members as well. The fund was established in 1936 as an emergency fund, actually, later called a relief fund to help university women who had been deprived of the right to work and in many cases the right to live in their native countries. In honor of many years of service given by long-term convener, Madame Blanche HECOFED of Switzerland, who was particularly responsible for raising money and distributing assistance during and after the Second World War, the fund adopted her name in 1968. The work of the fund can greatly change the lives of those women graduate refugees. Now I will give you some examples. An Ethiopian refugee, now living in Australia, was unable to find employment in her field of agricultural science without upgrading her computer skills. Our Australian Federation helped her to find an appropriate course and offered her moral support, and the fund covered her tuition fees for business computer courses. Here you can see in the photo, our members are with her, and they met in International Women's Day event, and that meeting there were 1,500 participants. Another example, an African political refugee living in Latvia received a grant for intensive language classes and has now found a part-time job. She's a single mother. She works in a restaurant that allows her to take home some food for her child, as the cost of living is very high. You can see her in the picture with her classmates from this course. Another example, 5 refugees from Asia, Africa, and Latin America, all now living in Switzerland, were funded for a German language course. Their professions include dentistry, chemistry, management, and accounting. An Afghani medical doctor in Canada. She was not allowed to practice medicine there. Through the fund, she received a tuition grant for courses in ultrasound technology, and she hopes to continue her studies so that she qualifies as a nurse. In the meantime, she works part-time and studies while looking after her 3 children. And lastly, a Sudanese refugee in Egypt who has a Bachelor of Science and was earning a very low wage teaching primary students, was given a tuition grant to take some computer courses. With her upgraded skills, she hopes to get a better job and help her younger siblings who are still in southern Sudan. We have a wonderful committee who is receiving applications for this HEC-HOFET fund. Our convener is Jasmiras. She's from Panama. And Gometi, she asked a question before, so you know her now. She's from our Federation of University Women in India. The application to our fund is very easy. It is online. Since COVID-19, we began online applications, receiving online applications as a means to make it easier for refugees to apply. Of course, our applications increased, but also this brings many applications from those who are not official refugees. We demand some legal documents to see them. They are refugees, actually. We are receiving donations to this HEC-HOFET fund for several events. For instance, in the conferences we made in every 3 years, we open HEC-HOFET shops, and each country's NFA bring some souvenirs from their countries, and we sell these souvenirs in the shop, and we make donations for this refugee fund. You can also make online payments by credit card from our website. So your donations are very welcome. Thank you very much. I will be pleased to answer your questions. And I want to say that our Executive Director, Stacey Drailare, is here with us. Our President, Terry Odrath, is here with us, and she was the previous HEC-HOFET convener. We have Louise McLeod, our Vice President Advocacy. And yes, our committee member Gometi is here, and our young member, President Suda, is also here with you.
Thank you very much, Basak. I'm very grateful for this representation of Graduate Women International with us today and the support for this webinar. I do believe that both will support each other. We had somebody that is talking about how to give the toolkit to young women who are just arriving in a foreign country, and then your view of we have got the formula set to hopefully help those women who are especially graduate to at least to achieve their potential. And sometimes it is a language course or an IT skill course. And hopefully that will result in some collaboration between the two organizations. I would ask the audience if you have any questions for the team of GWI. I'm including them all rather than Basak, as she introduced everybody together here. Annelies.
Money. I'm always treasurer for everything. So how much money do you have on a yearly basis to give out these grants, roughly?
Thank you. It's not on a yearly basis, actually. We give grants up to 2,000 Swiss francs per applicant. And I have a request, Aisha, actually. I would like Adriana to distribute our website, our information about HECOFET to in their organization, so that we can reach more refugees. We can receive more applications from European refugees. We would be grateful, Adriana.
Of course, I'm sure that hopefully that collaboration will happen. Of course.
As we are graduate women, we give funding for graduate women. It is our, yeah.
Of course. I might just distract Pina Foti, our vice president, because again, with her, we had an Erasmus project, which has just really completed. And I believe that there is something which is still in the making, but it does relate to women refugee. And she was very kind enough to give us just some insight on what is this project is all about as they are planning to apply for it. Thank you very much, Pina.
Okay, so hello everybody. And we have just finished our last meeting in Amsterdam about a project of networking among associations in 5 different countries, Italy, Netherlands, France, Finland and Romania. And now we are presenting as a new project that is called Women Network 2022. And it is always an Erasmus project, KA210. And it's a small partnership, always in adult education. And the partnership is between UWI and Italian in Italy Association. Our topics, our priorities are creating upskilling pathways, improving accessibility and increasing the take-up of adult education, common values, civic engagement and participation, inclusion and diversity in the field of adult education, development of training courses, equal access and transition to labor market, inclusion of marginalized young people. The main objective of the project is the creation of a training course model specifically designed for the inclusion, integration, and approach to labor market of young migrant women. With this in mind, in order to link up with the priorities we have indicated, the aim of the project is to create a pilot course aimed at overcoming of the obstacles that stand in the way of successful integration into the labor market. The project stems from the need to provide tools to facilitate the overcoming of those barriers that can create isolation in the parts of migrant women who, for various reasons, are unable to fit into the work and the social dynamics of the country in which they operate. They find themselves in a particularly vulnerable situation, especially from a labor point of view, due to their fragile condition as women and as foreigners. The percentage of foreign women in European countries is constantly increasing. However, from an employment point of view, the situation of women is more complex. The female unemployment rate of foreign women is much higher than that of both foreign men and Italian women. The inactivity rate also remains very high within this group. As stated in the report, second European Union Minorities and Discrimination Survey by the European Union Agency for Fundamental Rights, FRA, young female migrants are particularly exposed to this condition due to factors linked to both their culture and that of the host country, both as women and as foreigners, 70% higher than for men. This course that we will create aims to create interaction between different competencies on three different but interacting themes: social inclusion, educational inclusion, labor inclusion. The pilot course should act to strengthen the participants' self-awareness. For example, work on how to deal with the disorientation caused by the loss of the country of origin experience and the difficulties encountered in the country of arrival. Explore the possible causes of discomfort deriving, for example, from personality characteristics, the migration project, socioeconomic condition, the degree of acceptance perceived by the local population, the presence or the absence of emotional and social ties that can provide support. Training for access to the world of work, language training, and strategies for the creation of self-awareness are the guiding principles of the course. The expected results will see the participants develop greater self-awareness, flexibility, adaptability, and the ability to overcome difficulties, developing personal and functional ways to live within linguistic and cultural references belonging to the target culture. So we have the target groups: migrant women aged between 16 and 35, unemployed or unemployable, trainers, volunteers, and collaborators of associations linked to our organization. The activities that we are going to do are creation of project management groups and drafting of program and guidelines, selection of participant and need analysis selection, activation of courses, preparation of a final document. I'm sorry I didn't prepare the slides, but I'm sure that we have time, and maybe next meeting we have already done some steps forward to this.
Thank you very much, Pina, and all the best. And I hope that by next meetings, as you say, we will hear that it has been got the funds and you are on the positive steps to take that forward. Any further question to our speakers? I can't see any, but Roxana, if you see any, please highlight it to me. As I mentioned in the beginning, when I first started looking into in this webinar, the map of Europe was different, and the Ukrainian war was nothing that we knew that there was a, sorry, yeah.
I see
Roxana?
Patrice raised her hand.
Of course, Patrice, yeah. Go ahead, yes.
You are muted, Patrice.
Yes.
Excellent.
Good afternoon, Adriana. Yes. Thank you very much. Yes, I'm taking part in a research interview on Friday for Rotary. I'm in an inter-country committee, and the subject is peace building and forced migration. So obviously, a lot of what you said is very relevant. I just wondered if you think there's anything else I should add. I mean, you mentioned the position of Black women being treated much worse. Is there anything else that you think would be relevant to the topic?
For me, I would say that, peace building should never be undertaken without women being present at a table, because women are the first victims of war and conflict, as we can see now. Women's rights or women's human rights during times of conflict and war, they are even less upheld and even more put in danger. We do, our co-president of our network, she's a Black woman actually, Salome Mbugwa, and she works a lot on peace building. So I could put you two in touch. She has an organization in Ireland called Akidwa.
Okay.
And I will give you your email. I will give you her email.
Please do. Thank you so much. Yes, that will be very helpful. Thank you.
Okay, I will write it here on the personal one.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? As I was saying, the map of Europe is now different, and we have a war in Ukraine that have resulted in human rights atrocities and women. And we can't do any webinar that deals with migrant women without really touching on what has been the position of UE and the Council of Europe. And our president, Allegra, would have been with us to do her presentation, but she was kind enough to give us the fundamental position that UE and the Council of Europe have regarding this, that I do think is significant. Roxana have got the presentation, and she will share it with us all. And if there is any question, please do not hesitate to ask. But I hope it will be something very relevant to what we are all looking at our TVs every evening and thinking about most of the time. Roxana, if you want to go ahead with that.
Thank you, Aisha. Hello, everyone. I will share the screen with you now. Hope you can see the slides. Everything okay? You can see the slides? Okay.
Yes.
So Dr. Anne Negre is attorney at law and our president at University Women of Europe. And she was past vice president in charge of equality at the conference INGOs at the Council of Europe. You should know that we had a statement in solidarity with our friends of Ukraine. We prepared a statement, and also INGOs has a statement upon this topic. Yes, a war between two states begins on the European continent, as we already know, with dramatic consequences. Our GWI movement we were talking about was founded after the First World War in a spirit of peace and friendship between peoples. And this is our first reason for existing within the framework of civil society, of course, at local, national, European, and international level. On your behalf, on UE board, I'm sent our fullest support to our Ukrainian friends, women and men, attacked in a way we thought was outdated, violating all international rules such as the United Nations Charter of 1945, the European Convention on Human Rights of the Council of Europe, whose two protagonists were member states until February 24th. An extraordinary meeting of the Committee of Ministers of the Council of Europe took place on 24th of February. They condemned in the strongest terms the armed aggression against Ukraine by the Russian Federation in violation of international law, and decides to examine without delay and in close coordination with the Parliamentary Assembly and the Secretary General the measures to be taken in response to the serious violation of by the Russian Federation of its statutory obligation as a member state. They urged the Russian Federation immediately and unconditionally cease its military operations in Ukraine, and condemns the forms of Federation of the Ukraine of Donetsk and Luhansk as independent entities. Now, what happens now? Two countries of the 48 European continent are not members of Council of Europe, Federation of Russia and Belarus. When 25th of February, the Committee of Ministers of the Council of Europe in extraordinary session took the decision to suspend the rights of representation of the Russian Federation, and you already know that, in application of Article 8 of the Statute of the Council of Europe. The Secretary General of the Council of Europe made the following statement regarding the military offensive launched by the Russian Federation against Ukraine. She condemns the military offensive launched by Russia against Ukraine in flagrant violation of the Statute of the Council of Europe and the European Convention on Human Rights. The hour is dark for Europe and all that it represents. Here is the new map of the state members of the Council of Europe, of course, without Federation of Russia, and like before Belarus, March 2022. What can we do at UE? We can strongly support this position of the Committee of Ministers and the Secretary General of the Council of Europe in all respects and join them. You, as organizations, as national federations or international federations, you can support the statement of UE and INGOs and spread them. But the war ends one day, and we call on the parties to do everything possible to do this, to stop this endless cycle, which will only cause countless victims on both sides, will deprive children of families. We must act, insist that effective numerous infringements of the Russian Federation constitute crimes, but also the states which are its allies, they will have to be prosecuted before the International Criminal Court and sanctioned. We must insist for the future peace, the application of the 1042-5 resolution of United Nations for Human Rights, the presence of women in the process of peace. More than ever, let us be united in friendship and solidarity for peace, democracy, and support the Committee of Ministers of the Council of Europe, and of course, its Secretary General. Now Anne is mentioning the draft recommendation on protecting the human rights of migrant, refugee, and asylum-seeking women and girls is now at the level of the Committee of Ministers of Council of Europe. She was in the writing committee of the recommendation. You should know that the last recommendation was in 1979, and the new one is directly inspired by the strategy of equality between women and men, and its strategic point 5. Here are some issues as like access to justice, artificial intelligence, cooperation with civil society, data collection, research, monitoring, and others. And we have the next slide about the gender equality strategy. With 6 chapters here: prevent and combat gender stereotypes and sexism, ensure the equal access of women to justice, prevent and combat violence against women and domestic violence, achieve balanced participation of women and men in political and public decision-making, project the rights of migrant, refugee, and asylum-seeking women and girls, achieve gender mainstreaming in all policies and measures. And a few lines about the importance of the case law of the European Court of Human Rights. A guide exists of the case law of the European Court of Human Rights, which is located in Strasbourg and is very useful. Let us note that 20,000 files of Russian nationals were waiting to be judged. It is also bad news that they cannot be judged anymore with democratic views. In law, it is a huge loss for all European what it is done by the President of Federation of Russia. Here are some slides about the importance of the Istanbul Convention. The violence against women is not acceptable for all the victims, refugees, migrants, and asylum-seeking women. With the Article 4, the implementation of the provision of this convention by the parties. Here you can see what forms of violence are penalized. Sexual violence, female forced abortion, harassment, forced marriages, sexual harassment, domestic violence, and others. Yes. And what protection does the Istanbul Convention provide for migrant, refugee, and asylum-seeking women? We see now the 2 articles, Article 60 and 61. I think I can skip this part and go further. To the autonomous residence permit is possible for migrant women. Yes, the granting of an autonomous residence permit for migrant women who are victims of violence when the permit depends on the partner, spouse, and the relationship has broken down. Suspension of the deportation proceedings to allow the woman to apply for an autonomous renewable residence permit, recovered residency status for migrant women who have left the country due to forced marriage. A migrant woman may leave her country of origin because of this violence. She may experience it during the journey or upon arrival in the host country or countries during the asylum process. This process is stressful and increases the risk of domestic violence. In addition, the specific needs of migrant women due to their precarious and vulnerable situation raise concerns about their personal, physical, and sexual safety and security during the journey and in the camps. we are also aware of the great vulnerability of isolated children. This must be taken into consideration and mentions here. We thank you very much for being with us. Together we can act for peace. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Roxana, for sharing that with us. And I'm sure Anne is with us in spirit. It was very important for us as a board of UE to really mention how significant it is, the war in Ukraine, to what the Council of Europe is doing and what are the human rights issues that are related to that. We're all trying to bring that to the forefront of our organization, our political values and day-to-day life. I would just look around and see if there's any comments or if there's any questions from our speakers or to our speakers that any of our audience wish to place. Roxana, can you see any? I haven't got the full screen.
I saw Terry.
Yes.
Terry.
Please go ahead, Terry.
Okay, thank you very much. And thank you for the good presentation and very interesting views and all that. And I would like to say that GWI also did a statement, maybe what some of you have read. And what I also know was in the current negotiations, I noticed that never women are on the various, what do you call them? The various
peace negotiations.
The peace negotiations. I mean,
yes,
they're all
men.
men. And I thought,
I noticed.
It's something that's not
good enough.
You can't do very much right now, but I think it's something you have to keep in mind always, that is usually the case, which is not very good for women and girls as such. But I think as to the refugees, I think the Heg-Hoffitt Fund would probably be very good for some of the refugees who come and are currently settling themselves for probably a long time in the European countries, and maybe they can then follow courses, because like in the Netherlands, I know that when you're a refugee, you get language courses, Dutch language courses, and you have to really integrate in the Dutch society when you're accepted as an official refugee. And although, of course, Ukrainians aren't official refugees in that sense right now as such, but I do hope that maybe Heg-Hoffitt can help some of the people who would like to settle in their new country and also continue doing their, original profession. And I think Heg-Hoffitt does provide very good courses or money towards the courses so that they can really go on ahead and live their lives as they hope to fulfill and have their and also be able to do their own profession and not just be a cleaning woman, or nothing denigrated about that, but that's not what they are capable of doing. They're capable of much more. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Terry. And I can see Mari have got her hands up. Go ahead.
Am I unmuted now, Roxana?
You are.
Good, thank you. Just a couple of points there. First of all, one quite simple, really. Could we have a link, please, to Anne Negre's presentation? Is that possible, Roxana?
Actually, I can send you the presentation if you like.
Yes, that would be great. I know I've already seen the UE statement, so that would be important. The second thing, I'm just not perhaps totally up to date on the UE situation, but I'm wondering, I noticed you said that we had expressed solidarity with our Ukrainian graduate women. Is there a Ukraine Federation now in UE? I know there is a Russian one, so I'm just wondering what the situation is.
We have only the Russian Federation, member of University Women of Europe.
Yes, and has there been any reaction from the Russian Federation of University Women of Europe?
Unfortunately not. We invited our members to participate in a Zoom meeting upon this situation with the war in Ukraine, with the refugees, and they didn't join us.
Okay, that's unfortunate, because this is a situation where I would imagine that women on the ground have a lot to offer. And I wonder if there could be an encouragement, perhaps, through UE to the Russian group, to our Russian sisters, if you like, to see what, if anything, they are in a position to do.
I believe that Anne was thinking of that, and we as a board, we thought to support the Russian organization and send a message of that we are here to support you, because I'm sure they would have their own difficult times. And in answer to the Ukrainian, I believe the ICU, the Council of Women in Europe, had a Ukrainian organization, and the support went through that. UE itself, as Roxana mentioned, doesn't have an organization in Ukraine. Carolina, did I see you wanting to give a comment? Please go ahead.
Unmute.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify about the Russian women, because there was one woman participating in another discussion group about the organizational development. And she stated very clearly that she cannot say anything, and that the opinions there are split. But I agree that I think it would be a good thing that if one sends them a kind of support from UE also.
Yeah, I think that would be something very positive, that, you know, to do it in a positive way, because I'm sure there is an incredible fear among educated women in Russia, as well as among probably the general population. Obviously, I don't know, but I think any expression of support would have to be probably welcomed.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Any other comments?
Stacey.
May I, Aisha?
Yes, of course.
Stacey has her hand. Stacey has her hand up.
I think with reference to connecting to the Russian women, I think it's a difficult situation. We're making an assumption about views, and we have to be careful. I think there are likely to be a range of views among Russian women, partly because of their own experiences, the jobs they're in, and the information that they receive. And I think we have to be quite careful what we say and to whom, because we could be making life difficult for them.
Yeah, agree.
Stacey, did I see your hand? Please go ahead.
Can I speak? Annelies.
I've just seen Stacey's hand first, please, Annelies. Stacey, you go ahead, please.
Hi, thank you, Aisha, and thank you to all the wonderful presenters. And Aisha, again, your exceptional moderating. I don't know how you do that so well, but I just wanted to clarify also something about our Russian NFA on the GWI side. We have been in contact with our Russian NFA, and we have engaged with them in support. As example, one of the members moderated just this past Saturday the Young Member Network Conversation series. And she was very happy to do so. And also they participated with us in a CSW Commission on the Status of Women 66 Parallel event. There was some discussion with us and them before the participation of the parallel event at CSW, and Graduate Women International left it completely up to our Russian NFA if they felt comfortable and safe enough to participate. We held the spot, and in the end, there was participation. So just to let you know, we have done that, and we will continue to do that. And in Bashak wrote in the chat that from our opinion, there is a view from our NFA about what's going on, but our main goal is to make sure that they're safe and that they continue to feel supported by GWI and their opportunities for career and education. So thank you.
Thank you very much for giving us that update. I think that's very important, very significant at that time, because there are a lot of members who are asking about that. Annelise, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, I have to remind you that the European Center for the International Council of Women, like you said, have both Russian and Ukraine members. So and it's really difficult for the Russians to speak out. We got a message from the Ukrainian, and that was it. And we have a meeting. There will be a meeting in Avignon from the International Council and for the European Center in May. So we hope to have some more messages and more information then.
Thank you very much, Annelise. I think most of the European meeting, everybody will be looking at who's attending and who's not, and trying to give the support. Any other comment? Yes, please, Jasmira, go ahead.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon. I would like to inform you I am the head co-convenor. And it has been a very difficult time in this period since the COVID pandemic. We have received more than 100 applications, but these are the majority of the candidates that apply are not eligible because one, they're looking for funds to complete their bachelor's degree, PhD, or master's. Right now, they're desperate. Desperate because a lot of the funds, different organizations and funds given to in other organizations have been eliminated because of the pandemic, right? And also we have to take into account that they're not eligible because most of the courses now taken are online, and most of these ladies do not have the right tools. They don't have the technological tools to proceed with their learning, with their English courses, et cetera, et cetera. That's something that we have to take into account. So, and also when Hedge Hofet, it looks for displaced women and what it specifically says, weather and if I'm not mistaken, weather and religion. We do not have a place where there's victims of violence. That's something that we probably have to consider so they can be eligible to get the hedge funds. So we have to evaluate, because I was surprised what you just said. These regulations have been looked at since 1979. We're in a different time. So we have to go in according to what is now and present and what's going to be in the future. Thank you.
Exactly, I cannot agree more, and that's how, from my perspective, I see that that Adriana's network, European Women Lobby, that will all hopefully drive this this new information to the European Forum. Yes, Christine, I see your hand up. Please go ahead.
Thank you for your presentation, Roxana, and all of you. Talking about the help to come from federation, it's a very nice thought. But we in Switzerland, when any case occurs like this, the mobilization is so strong, high, that everyone moves to give his help. Okay, talking about our UE and about help from the National Federation. Okay, our women in Switzerland, for instance, are melted in that whole movement to help. And of course, that they give substantial help. Then helps are in different way. They are individuals, they are from groups to give helps to other NGOs. And it's so difficult, for instance, for us to gather financial in that way, that we could say that it's a national federation, because women, university women in Switzerland, they give away a lot. We would like to do so. Even universities, we approached universities to know how they could participate for a help to our members who are confronted with this war. But universities, they have their measures to help them, to help women, even men, researchers, and that is going on. And okay, the door is not yet locked, but we shall see what we could do in that sense. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this comment. And from UE's perspective, and I speak on behalf of the board, when we bring this group of people in a webinar in a very friendly manner like that, we all hope that exchanging information, collaboration will all help in that cause, because we are all looking at women who need some help, women, whether they're graduate or none, that have crossed continent, crossed countries, and we all want to give them a helping hand. And as always with the GWI, we are perfecting the art of friendship. I will look at my audience now for any further comments. Elizabeth, is that a hand? Please do go ahead.
Hi, and thank you to everybody for their very good presentations. My comment is about when you talked earlier about the jobs that migrant women are getting. Well, in Austria, certainly with the last crisis and the war in the Ukraine, Austria as a neutral country is very active in supporting the Ukraine. And we had a meeting about that before, where I mentioned various things. And with the jobs, there are certainly high value jobs available, particularly in IT. Because there's a great shortage, and also a social in the social sector and in gastronomy. And that was about the jobs basically that I wanted to remark on, and any migrant woman, because the Ukrainians don't need asylum in Austria, but the others with an asylum status, it's the same, that they would have a good chances for high value jobs. Yeah, that was one comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much for giving us the Austrian take on that. I'm looking around, as they say, to see if there's any any comments? I believe that we will be sending the presentation for Anne to the participant. And also, if there is any questions or link that you might want from Adriana, where I'm more than happy as a board of UE to have this question and forward it on. But I think I can't see any more hands out.
Also, can we have the description of the new project, the new Erasmus project?
Sure, once it is submitted, absolutely. But at this point, I think they are in the process of submitting it. So we'll have our fingers crossed for the board and the Italian for Italy. Once we get the approval from the Erasmus, we will be, of course, sharing it with our members the same way as we did for the Net Power.
Yes, actually, the final sort of outcome of the previous project is that.
Of course, I will hope that I'm doing an advert session now, that you will join us in the annual General Assembly in Cyprus, where we will be presenting the meetings, the website which has come out of that, and hopefully a couple of other collaborative work. But yes, it will be presented at that time.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Well, ladies, I would like to thank you very much for making me fulfill that ambition that I had one day last December to make this webinar. I will start by thanking my two main speakers for giving the time, for really corresponding with myself on behalf of the board, Adriana and Basak. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your presentation and your support. I would really appreciate that we can collaborate, we can share our knowledge to make our goals go further. And it's only by collaboration that we can do that. I value very much the discussion that have happened afterwards. I think everybody gave their own view on that, and that's very important for our partners to listen to that and to take it forward. Very much thank you for the support of the UE board, from Roxana, from Annalise and Pina to help myself in bringing that forward. I'm sure Anne is with us, as I said, in spirit. And at this point, I would like to thank you all for attending, and I'm hoping that you would receive the information that you've requested from our Secretary General, and look forward to see you in further webinars. Again, I'll put my my advertising hat on and say there is a UE meet and greet that our NFA in Israel is organizing, and that's in the beginning of May. It is on our website. Please come and join us. We have to get some silver lining to these Zoom meetings. So hopefully we can bring more people together that might have not been able to attend. Thank you very much all for attending, and special thanks for my speakers.
Thank you, Aisha. In solidarity.
Thank you so
My
much.
pleasure.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Be safe. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.